Meeting notice is City Council Ad Hoc Committee, sewage processing, restrict private businesses from sewage processing, 6:30, Tuesday, August 23rd, 2011, caucus room, 3rd floor, City Hall. My name is Joe Cabo, I'm the committee chairperson. We have members of the committee. Mr. Seabury is out of town, attending a family business. Mr. Knapp is going to be late, but he will be here. Mr. Sadi is here, Mr. Visconti is here, our Superintendent of Public Utilities, David Day, is here. We have ex officio members, Councilman Ben Chianese and Councilman Don Taylor here, as well as members of the public. Okay, I am going to try to keep a very tight line on the discussion tonight and try to keep it very focused to the request for the ad hoc from the leadership of the City Council. And at this time, I'd like to open it up for discussion by the committee members. Mr. Sadi, Mr. Visconti, did you want to? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think the charge of the committee is pretty clear to address a general concern of the city. We have zoning regulations and planning regulations that are periodically reviewed, and amendments and changes do occur from time to time. And I think the committee's charge is to consider and make a recommendation, while not binding on our respective agency or departments within the city, to give them sort of the will or the desire of the council with regard to a particular issue that we think is health, safety, and welfare based. I think that's the issue of septic sewage facilities under, I believe it is specifically 6B28, special exception use in the IG-80 zone, sewage treatment facility.
Okay.
So, there's really not much to say. I mean, the letter that outlined the request for this committee sort of laid it out.
Okay. Very good. Mr. Pinter, want to weigh in?
Mr. Chairman, with respect to the letter, that we do have a copy of the letter submitted to the full council by the members thereof. And the intent of the committee, as we understand it, is to examine possibility of an ordinance draft to address the concern with an alternate sewage treatment plant in this zone. And our office, in preparation for this meeting and this issue, has done some work, some good level of work with respect to the number of issues that are affected and implicated here. We're continuing to discuss with the Public Utilities Department, as well as the Planning and Zoning Department, ways in which the council's request can be furthered in a way which does not affect normal, standard legal rights of citizenry and business owners. So, as in any case, we would try to work hard to balance those interests. And however, we do, as a higher priority, intend to provide this council with guidance as to how to get what they would like done while protecting those interests.
As you always do, Mr. Pinter.
That's right, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. David, I don't know if we really have anything for you at the moment, until we, I think, come up with a suggestion or a direction of where we want to go, we may ask you to, put your feeling in on that, but right now I think we're, unless there's something you have a burning desire to tell us about.
No, if you have any questions, we'll certainly answer them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Iderola, for showing up as well.
Thank you.
It's not a shot.
It's too early to gauge that.
Absolutely sincere. I mean that with all sincerity. All right. Mr. Knapp, I don't know what his questions or concerns would be at the current time. He's not here, and if he gets here, we can certainly ask him if he has any questions or concerns. Mr. Stein?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify, in reviewing the letter as well as some of the legal standards, I think just to clarify the record that not really looking at the council passing an ordinance, but to rely on the planning and zoning department to follow the statutory and case law guidelines in developing an approach to the situation that's consistent with law, as opposed to the council adopting an ordinance and imposing it unilaterally. With that said, and I know more discussion can occur, and so maybe we can facilitate some more specific discussion if necessary. I'd like to make a motion at this time that the committee recommend to the city council as a whole that it task the planning and zoning department to proceed, I'll give you a copy of this, consistent with applicable statute and case law, promulgating regulations to restrict the construction and operation of sewage treatment facilities to those so constructed or operated by the city of Danbury or its lawfully designated agent or agents thereof.
Second. Okay, motion's been made and seconded.
If I may have the discussion.
Sure.
Um,
Please proceed.
The issue of fees and other more, I would say, ministerial aspects of this whole issue, like fees, sewer fees, gallon fees, things like that. I don't want to venture, I think, into that territory and would leave that to Mr. Day or others, because I think those issues may be able to be dealt with administratively rather than legislatively by the council or by the planning commission. I don't believe that, the planning and zoning department sets sewer fees, water fees, those things, those are set through a whole different legal scheme. So that's why I think it's good to limit it to this issue.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stein.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Visconti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess basically what I'd like to say is that I think we're doing the right thing here. I just hope that we aren't setting a precedent, and I don't believe we are, that makes the city council or planning and zoning or whatever it may be look as though we're trying to tell people, what kind of business they can open or they can't open, that type of thing. I think this has been an issue very well discussed and presented to us, the council, by the neighbors, and I think we've taken their advice and also council's advice. I think we're going in the right direction. So I think we're doing the right thing here, so that's why I seconded it.
Maybe we can ask Mr. Pinter to just chime in on that, in regards to Mr. Visconti's.
Well, I like that comment I do, that the council has every right to further the interests of the elected, of the population that elects you folks into office, every right to further those interests. You have every right to inquire into those and how to do that. At the same time, to take a look at how that's done. And the motion made is sufficiently general yet specific in what you'd like to see done, which is a way to secure certain interests of the city and its population while recognizing interests on the side. There's no easy way to do this sometimes, but you have to begin somehow to look at officials that can help implement those procedures. So I guess the reflection through you by folks who have expressed concerns about this comes to the table, and they're perfectly authorized to inquire as to how to do that. I know it's very generic. There are a lot of issues Dave Day in his office and others that are very helpful to us in trying to look at administrative methods to accomplish the goal, as well as other avenues where we can look at that balance and come up with an answer. So we're in the process of doing that, and we'll certainly get options for you together with the other departments.
Okay, great. I mean, I take Mr. Sadi's motion as a request for zoning and planning to look into this and come up with a solution that would work, so.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just interject here, I would just say that should this motion pass, using our infrastructure and our utilities for a profit-making operation is, I think, rises to a level of a much bigger issue than just a zoning regulation or change. And the concern I have with the zoning regulations is that often they're subject to interpretation by the zoning department. Notwithstanding with the current, whatever's in the pipeline, whatever, because this is not an issue necessarily about Mr. Coffey's project. This is much bigger than that. And my concern is that anybody using our infrastructure, whether it be our water department or our waste treatment plant, above and beyond our profit-making, for profit-making purposes, I think is problematic for us. And I at least like the opportunity for Corporation Council to do a little research about whether we can craft an ordinance that would prohibit that kind of activity, because the strength of an ordinance would be much stronger than a zoning amendment. Again, because it's open to interpretation, lawyers come in, they try to split the planning commission from the zoning commission. They're very good at that. They get paid a lot of money to do those things. And next thing you know, we end up having these legislative votes and, well, they met the regulation. I think we have to be very clear in sending a message through a city ordinance saying, look, you can't do this kind of activity with our infrastructure. We've done it with the waste hauling industry. We've done it with the transfer station. At least we should look at that as an option. And certainly if any other issue, I think a zoning amendment would be fine. I'm just a little concerned about setting this up to planning and zoning to sort of research if that's really what their intent was.
Well, that can certainly be just one leg of what we do here tonight. You know, the motion that we have on the floor could just be one part of this. Our original letter to the council asked for a possible ordinance and to look at that. So, we have that ability. Mr. Sadi?
If I may, through the chair, I agree with the mayor in that, in addition to this particular motion, that a broader approach needs to be considered, and would consider part of, maybe either a friendly amendment or the intent of the committee to ask Corporation Council to begin work on a broader approach from the standpoint of an ordinance which is not just specific to this particular type of facility, septic treatment facility, but the use of our public utilities in a way that undermines our public utilities while inuring a profit to particular individuals or entities, along the lines, like I said, of waste hauling.
Or give us the authority to set a higher rate, at the very minimum. When somebody comes in to say, because what could be next? Avian show up and start bottling our water, and they'll pay the commercial rate, but they'll have a significant impact on our safe yield. I mean, that may be a little extreme, but that's just the kind of activity I think we're trying to regulate. I mean, there's significant taxpayer resources put into these utilities, both in our sewer plant as well as into our water treatment system. That really shouldn't be, companies shouldn't be able to capitalize on that. They should have to pay a premium at the minimum. I think they should be prohibited from doing that. I mean, these facilities are to serve the public, they're to serve businesses, but they're not there for folks to make money on. That's just my opinion. Okay. And if Mr. Sadi's agreeable, maybe we can direct two different tracks on here and perhaps, come back, continue this meeting, but we can take the motion out of here. I don't know how we would do this, I guess, but we would
Bifurcate the motion.
Yeah.
bifurcate the motion, yeah.
motion.
So we can continue this meeting in case you don't have to put another letter on the agenda, and also have this on the agenda for zoning and planning to look at. I don't know, just throwing out the idea.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, Mr. Sadi?
Yeah, I think, like I said, a way to do this is potentially to bifurcate the reports of the committee and submit the motion that is currently pending to the council for action in September, that September meeting, while continuing the committee keeping the committee open to further investigate the issue of a general ordinance to address these concerns.
And I think our letter of intent covers both of that, so.
The other thing, just to note for the record, you know, zoning and planning regulations inherently restrict. They restrict uses. You can't build, you know, certain things next to certain things or near certain things or in certain zones. I can't build a 10-story house on my, you know, residential lot. So it's not, and Councilman Visconti, you know, very articulately stated it, but this is not that we're trying to say we don't want businesses here. This is that zoning regulations, I mean, just the state statute specifically talks about it. It is restrictive in nature. One person's property can be used to the extent that it is consistent with and doesn't interfere with another person's quiet enjoyment of their property, in the legal term, quiet. That being said, you know, Danbury has a lot of different uses in our zones all over the place. We don't allow everything, we allow many things. I think we moved 20 years ago chemical fertilizer plants. There was a concern about it. So you address these things year to year or day to day as people become aware of concerns within our planning and zoning regulations. The statutes contemplate that, the case law contemplates that. We don't have the same zoning and planning regs we had in place in 1975. They change. They adapt and they adjust as is appropriate for the city, health, safety, and welfare. So I think we can report out this recommendation. The other final thing from the standpoint of intent is that this motion is not intended just to be research this and get back to us sometime way in the future. This motion is intent that to proceed expeditiously, and in all candor, I didn't want to put a deadline on it, but I would say that before the end of September, for planning and the planning and zoning department to come up with the approach they're going to take, whether they determine that they can legally do this, which I think they can, or if they think they can't, to report back to the council and explain what they can and can't do. I don't want this, I don't think, the intent of this motion is not to have this sitting out there on a 6-month research project.
So
Mr. Chairman, they are, I mean, there is a letter on file
Yeah.
from Dennis. They are currently doing just what Mr. Sadi has described. The problem, they have articulated some pitfalls with that. I don't have any objections. Basically, you're asking them to continue the work and to try to get something done. I would, again, just mention that we have a history of, through our ordinances on when a particular usage is, so it needs to be highly regulated to be able to put it in ordinance. But, you know, they are looking at it, and the only concern I have is that zoning commissions, planning commissions, zoning board of appeals are fraught with pitfalls and subject to interpretations, and lawyers have been very good with the city over the years at splitting various commissions and people claiming claiming some kind of hardship, and next thing you know, you've got this kind of application in front of the ZBA now. There may be a couple different ways we can skin this cat.
Mr. Pinter would just advise us on bifurcating this and how we would go about it. Mr. Sadi would make an amendment to his motion if it would be seconded.
Well, if you,
Excuse me if I could, I'm sorry, I apologize for being late, but could I hear the motion as it was directed so that I understand?
The original motion is moved that the committee recommend to the city council as a whole that task the planning and zoning department to proceed consistent with applicable statute and case law with promulgating regulations to restrict the construction and operation of sewage treatment facilities to those so constructed or operated by the city of Danbury or lawfully designated agent or agents thereof.
Mr. Pinter?
it sounds as though, based on the mayor's comment, was that second part of that would be to task our office together with others to provide a draft ordinance, some draft ordinance language to both supplement whatever the zoning folks do, as well as independently provide some regulation.
Which means more work for your office.
We've already been on that path already. We've been there already, so that's not a problem. But if you want something definite, not a problem either. We will return to you as we normally do, with a request with some draft language. And there are, and there's no problem saying this, there are statutes out there that permit a municipality to regulate this area in certain ways, and those ways include the adoption of local law to implement that. So we can come back to you with that. Now, there's also a hybrid option which ties the zoning regulation amendment with a code change. So you can tie it together, you can have reference to code language or other law in the zoning regulation. So that can also occur. So we'll come back to you with recommendations from both sides and language from both sides. If you want to keep the committee open, you can do that. You can receive the draft at that time and then take some.
I think as Mr. Sadi said, there's an urgency to get at least this part out there and on the September agenda. That was our goal.
But understand, Mr. Chairman, the council can ask, but the council has no authority to direct the
Right. No,
zoning
we
commission
understand.
or the staff to do anything. There's nothing wrong with bringing this back to the council for September, trying to get, they're already doing this anyways, get them plugging away on this and try to get us some kind of drafting back before you guys, as soon as Les has done some work.
What if I may, Mr. Chairman, in line with what the mayor is stating, with Corporation Council stated, we don't necessarily have to bifurcate the motion or the recommendation. We just simply need to continue the committee, but I think that the council as a whole should vote on not only the motion as presented, but consider my own friendly amendment to the motion would be to recommend that Corporation Council draft an ordinance consistent with the concerns as outlined by the mayor during this committee meeting, and to present that draft ordinance to this committee at its next meeting.
But does that shut down the committee? That's my only concern.
No,
That'll be
that we present it to the committee at its next meeting.
So as I understand, your report.
Are you assuming time that we'll meet one more time prior to the
No.
September meeting?
Mhm.
Because then wouldn't you need another letter to, when you start with the committee again?
Let's see, let me do this. So, all right, yes, meeting coming up in September, so your motion out would be to do two things. And I think the bifurcation is probably okay. The first part of the motion would be that you recommend that the zoning plan
As stated.
department as stated. And the second part would be to maintain the committee for further
Purposes of-
examination.
Continue the committee for purposes of reviewing a draft
Correct.
ordinance as presented
That
by
would be
Corporation
a
Council.
two-part motion, that would be
Yes.
a bifurcated motion.
Yep.
And then you save
That
the
works.
committee.
Yeah.
That way we don't lose them off, that's all.
Right.
Mr. Yeah.
Through you. Les, if we so decide that we want to push this forward, which we obviously are, whether we're doing this or not, the zoning commission is already on board with this, the zoning department's already on board with this pushing, are they not?
We don't
Have
know.
they not started that?
You gotta go to planning, you gotta get her.
I know the process, so I'm figuring we'll want them on board next month anyhow, so if the zoning department's already pushing the agenda,
Well, we have a memorandum from the planning director. We don't know how that's been reflected to the commission itself, but Dennis's memo indicates that they're looking at options. So
Right.
once those options are developed by planning, they will presumably refer them over to the commission, and the commission will consider that. I'm not aware that the commission is presently reviewing Jack.
and from a time frame standpoint, if hypothetically the zoning department asks the zoning commission to recommend a motion, that's going to push ahead in their next agenda, next meeting anyhow. They would build it for that.
At that point, yes, at that point, that they'll examine the recommendation and decide to take action on it.
Mr. Chairman, permit me to interject. The other danger we have here is that either of those panels could decide they don't want to enact an amendment change.
Right.
Those are subject to public hearing. It's an extended, long process, and I think the council can act a lot quicker, assuming Les can get to work, that can act a lot quicker than the zoning commission. So I think having a two-part, a two-track approach here would be very important. I think we'll be long done before they actually get to it.
I would then, Mr. Chairman, put that discussion in the form of an amendment to the main motion. A friendly amendment to the motion that we continue the committee, bifurcate the issue, and have Corporation Council draft an ordinance consistent with the concerns as outlined by the mayor at this meeting to report it back to this ad hoc committee for further consideration.
Okay, Mr.
Second.
Kennedy, you approve that? Okay. Great. Okay. So we'll have a motion as stood through the discussion with the original motion with a friendly amendment to authorize the Corporation Council to proceed with drafting an ordinance. We'll report out one part of this to the council for the September meeting and continue this committee to a later date, which is called by the chairman. All in favor? Oh, that's what I was gonna just check out. Because I already have a motion, Ben, and
Well, but this is highly technical. And you gotta try to convince 18 other council members to agree with you in probably a relatively short time. Otherwise, on the diet, we're gonna have a long discussion on this. So I would recommend, because, I mean, I'm on zoning, I know what you guys are talking about. A lot of members are not. And they may not understand what you're trying to achieve here. Because I can get lost very easily, and I was getting lost, because you were bouncing back and forth. But I was following what the mayor was saying, and I agree with the mayor, that we should have a separate fee for these type of facilities, whether it be water or sewer. And I agree with that, I think we should have that. I think
that's not technically the charge of this committee.
I understand it, but I think that is an important point.
Well, it could be part of his ordinance.
Right, but I'm saying that should not be overlooked. I think that's the most important thing that can come out of this, is what the mayor was talking about. Because zoning can decide, I agree with you, or they can say, I want to just take this out of the zoning amendment right now, and it's done. Because I think they can do that, correct?
Sure.
They can say, you know, I agree with it, let's remove sewer plants from the city altogether, like they did with fertilizer plants. So whether or not they do that or not, we just don't know. So we're trying to trump zoning at this point, it's my opinion. I think we're trying to act quicker to get something on the books that can sort of like supersede a zoning right now.
Just to think out loud, Mr. Chairman, and maybe Mr. Penner might want to do a little work in this. We can trump zoning commission decisions by a 2/3 vote of the city council, isn't that correct?
You can trump a denial.
You can trump a denial. So should they reject and change the amendments, we could bring that to the city council, correct? A denial of the.
Well, it would be an 824 denial
Okay.
of an actual application
Yep.
and the request. But I'm sorry, to the
Yes,
chair, the council certainly can enact or amend an ordinance to reflect its authority. Since there is authority in the Connecticut General Statutes on the subject, the Code of Ordinances can certainly be used to trump the zoning regulations.
And that's done.
Given that authority.
And it's
Given
done
that
from
authority.
time to time throughout the ordinance. But I think, Ben, either way, we're gonna have that discussion with, whether it's with zoning commission and planning commission members who don't get what we're trying to do, or may not agree with what
Or
we're
be
trying
with
to
the
do.
council.
Or with council members. Personally, I'd rather have it with our council guys and gals, because, I think they're spatial thinkers, and after a while, they'll figure it out. But I think a very clean, simple ordinance from Les that says, look, you base it. I understand this tiered rate thing, and we've done that before for commercial rates. We have it in our ordinances now. But I'd rather just see some kind of prohibition from profit making from our utilities. I think there's something just basically wrong with that. If that can be done. If not, I think the fallback is you go back and look at the rate structure. We do it all the time for commercial enterprises that pay a higher rate.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, can I comment here or no?
Always your coffee. Normally in this process, we don't take comments from members of the public, especially once a motion's been made and seconded by committee chair people. So I'm going to stay pretty tight to that tonight. You certainly can comment at the September meeting in the public speaking section of the council.
So just getting back, so in layman's terms, what is the goal of, what are you going to put forward in the September agenda? In layman's terms, what's the goal that you're trying to achieve? Not in a legal sense, but in layman's terms that we can all understand.
I'll say, if I may,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Your motion.
is to communicate the intent of the council on this issue in general with regard to privately run septic facilities or treatment facilities, to inform the council that we've asked Corporation Council to proceed with drafting an ordinance to address the broader issue as it relates to public utilities in general, and that the ad hoc committee will vet that before then the October meeting. I think, like you said, Councilman Chenese, it can be highly technical, and I think that's why it's important to have that draft ordinance come to the committee to be vetted before it will go to the whole council potentially in October.
So we won't have an ordinance at the September meeting. We'll just have the instructions for the committee to keep working and have us work on designing something.
So it's really like an update of what you guys are doing.
Yeah. And the second piece of that was that the zoning commission, or planning and zoning department, to have a change, an amendment to the zoning regulations.
Chairman, I apologize, I have to leave, I have another engagement, supposed to be at
Thank you,
7 o'clock, so
Thank you
sorry
for
to
being
leave early,
I think
but,
we're pretty much wrapped up here anyway.
thank you.
Anybody else have anything else they want to input in?
Thank you.
I'm ready to restate the motion intent, and seeing no further discussion, I'll try and remind all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed, anybody abstaining, motion carries unanimously.
Chairman, I move that we continue this committee to the call of the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Shadid. Second by Mr. Visconti. And all those in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.